Previously on FoofDeckman.
I was having fun, and I hope the full game can actually deliver that same feeling. And if it sucks, I will rewatch this video in deep embarrassment as I watch myself be completely consumed by hype and excitement. So I ended up cutting that portion of audio from the end of part 1, as I felt it didn't really fit tonally with what I wanted to end on. It wasn't scripted, it was just something I said at the end of that video. But was I right? Watch this, watch this.
UNSC lost so many.
Shut up, Natana. Okay, maybe I was a tiny bit right, but hold on. Let me explain a bit more. Halo Infinite is a really good game. Great, in fact. That's if you're talking about the multiplayer portion of the game. Unfortunately, the campaign isn't nearly as good. I was enjoying myself quite a lot for the first half of just flying around the map with this grapple hook. I don't know who at 343 said, "Hey, what about unlimited grapple hook?" It seriously never got tiring to do any of the crazy shit that I showcased. The weapons feel fantastic in this game. With most weapons, there's some actual strategy and somewhat of a learning curve when it comes to mastering them. Even when just using the default AR, the ability to just try and manage your recoil to make every shot count feels so much better than just mindlessly shooting like pretty much all other FPS games that are currently out right now. There's enemies with different weak spots, so sometimes you'd be better off using a different type of weapon to better deal with what you're facing. It's not rocket science, but it's something that most games tend to not focus on as much as others, and it really shows here. There's tons of ways to approach different enemies with how open the map actually is. There's several moments in this game during some of the bounty hunter contract side missions where I just sit on a hilltop because of my current loadout, but I could have just as easily ran in there if I had a gravity hammer and killed them in a few hits. There's collectibles all over the map that you have to hunt down that'll help increase your abilities or give you skins for your weapons and vehicles and a variety of other stuff. There's enemy bases you can capture all over the map that'll make traversing a ton easier as they open up fast travel locations. All of this with a fantastic score playing in the background featuring new renditions of songs from the entire series. The sandbox nature of Halo Infinite is really where it shines. But I did say first half of this game for a reason. Halo Infinite's campaign was near perfect for the first 5 hours. I was flying around the map, grabbing all these supply caches and other collectibles. It was fun. Then after about another 5 hours of doing the same thing in the same looking environment, I didn't feel like I was actually progressing. I became extremely fatigued really quickly once I started to realize that was basically all the game offered. The missions in this game consist of going to a location, killing enemies in a big area, and then sometimes killing a boss. You do the same exact thing over and over and over again to the point where I almost thought about quitting the campaign itself and never finishing it, as I didn't feel like I was doing anything. It's one of the main reasons it took so long for this video to come out in the first place. I just didn't want to play more of it and felt obligated to just because I made a part 1 video. I mean, look at this. These are 3 different levels of the game. When I look back at Halo CE, I see all of these visually distinct levels. You could be infiltrating a base on this beach. You could be hijacking enemy banshees in a giant snowy mountain area. You could be trying to drive in a warthog to the end of the level before a spaceship explodes. In Halo Infinite, you get blue and grass. Hell, even when it comes to the same game's multiplayer, it has more unique levels than the single player campaign, of which you have to actually pay for. You have this cool looking nighttime street level map, or a launch site, or a desert base, or even a fucking laboratory. Nothing even close appears in the campaign, and that makes seeing nothing but the same grass textures after 20 hours even more frustrating. I see a lot of people comparing this game to Breath of the Wild for some reason, because nobody who's played video games has ever seen grass before outside of Legend of Zelda. Halo Infinite reminds me much more of a Far Cry game. In those games, you have a giant open world. You go around doing similar copy and paste missions, like climbing radio towers or rescuing people. They're basically the same side missions, just placed in different locations. Those games rely on good set pieces. That makes wanting to progress the main story actually worth it. Halo Infinite has almost no set pieces. Whenever I'm doing a level in this game, I don't feel like I'm actually doing anything other than Natana telling me,
Hey, that's another step to securing this ring.
I shouldn't have to be told that I'm making progress. I should be able to feel it. So in Halo Infinite, when everything feels like a Far Cry side quest, it just feels like padding in an attempt to cover up its weak story.
Oh, I'm Atriox. I don't do anything in this entire game. Look at me, I'm the Harbinger. I look like the Ancient Ones from Doom. I'm gonna open up something called the Endless, even though I will not elaborate on what that is, other than saying it's ancient, because I guess everything that's old is inherently bad.
Moving on. I feel like I covered mostly everything I wanted to say about the multiplayer in part 1, as the fights were pretty similar to what the full game ended up having, but I'll quickly retread what I said for those of you who don't feel like going back to check. I love the time to kill in this game. It takes more than just looking at your enemies with whatever gun is part of the current meta and killing them in a split second. You have to aim and point to kill someone. It's a bizarre concept, I know. Everything feels like it has a certain weight to it. With the gravity hammer, there's a slight delay before hitting anyone where you begin to swing. The animation on the swing really adds more of an impact and feels like you're actually carrying around this giant hunk of metal that'll bat someone into space. It's the little details that keep adding up and shows that the animation and sound design team knew what they were doing. From a gameplay and mechanical standpoint, this game is near perfect. It's one of the best multiplayer games I've played in a really, really long time, and it was extremely refreshing to play. At first. There are a total of 10 different multiplayer maps in the game currently. Now I know that 10 maps might sound like a lot, but as someone with around 80 hours on this game, not including the time I spent on the flights itself, I've probably played each map countless times. It's not like any of these maps are bad, it's just tiring to see the same ones over and over and over again, similar to how seeing the same environments in the campaign became fatiguing after a while. No matter how good these maps are, they're still severely lacking with game modes. Now, I'll admit, they added a good amount of new modes within the past month, but the fact that this game launched with only 4 arena modes is ridiculous. I'm not even talking about them adding complex objective-based modes. They could add a playlist where everyone has a sidekick or a particular weapon, and I'm pretty sure most people would have a blast with it. If I can create it in custom games in about 2 minutes, why the hell isn't there a way for me to play this in a public match? 343, it took me 2 minutes.
Where are the game modes?
It doesn't help that the progression system is almost non-existent in the first place, and 343 seem to have their eyes on adding new battle pass events and store items rather than actual content people would want to return to the game to experience themselves. I remember hearing the idea of this battle pass and how it would work and how it was mentioned in interviews prior to its release, which still sounds good in concept. I just didn't expect it to be the only form of progression in the game. There's no default leveling system, which makes progression literally non-existent unless you pay money for the battle pass. I wouldn't feel so hesitant to return to the game if I knew I actually had a chance of making progress outside of the first few games I play when XP drops are higher. The game incentivizes you to play less by giving you less XP every game you play. It makes no sense, and I really hope they change this shit, because this is awful. While I might have jumped on the hype train a bit too much for this game, I still ended up really enjoying it. Even though it seems like I focused a lot more on criticizing the game rather than singing its praises, there's still a ton to love about Halo Infinite. The campaign might have become more flawed as I continued playing, but those first few hours felt great. If Halo Infinite can get campaign DLC or a direct sequel, I really hope they add some cool set pieces to the missions, maybe add some new types of missions, or at least make important areas in the game look visually distinct from each other. Open world Halo has a lot of potential, and I feel some changes could be genuinely great. The best part of this game is the fact that you can play the multiplayer of this game for free, which is a miracle in itself. As long as you have an Xbox or a computer that's able to run it, you're good to go. I hope 343 takes notes and expands on what they have content-wise. When my main problems with the multiplayer consist of saying, I want more, I think that's a good sign of how good the actual core of this game is. I know a lot of game outlets and YouTube YouTubers gave Halo Infinite a near perfect rating, but I don't think they had enough time to really take the game in for what it is. It's fantastic, but it's extremely flawed in its current state. If I wanted to judge this game as a whole, I'd personally give it probably a 7 out of 10. I have such differing feelings from the campaign to the multiplayer that I think giving it a generalized score of 7 out of 10 isn't doing the game any justice. So let me split it up a bit. I'd give the free-to-play multiplayer portion of the game an 8 out of 10, as I feel it's the most fun I've had in an online multiplayer shooter in a really long time. If you seriously have the ability to play it, I don't know what you're doing watching this, go play it, it's free. For the campaign, on the other hand, I jumped my score down to a 4 out of 10, as I almost didn't even finish it because of how uninterested I became towards the midway point of the game. It has so much promise in the beginning as you wonder what direction they'll take it, but that anticipation of what's to come fades quick once you realize you've already experienced what's to come just by playing the first few hours. Definitely don't pay $60 for the campaign, but if you're able to get it for a cheaper price, maybe $20, $30, $40, I'd say it's worth a pickup. Sorry for the long wait for this video. I only just completed the game less than a week ago, so it took me a bit. There's probably going to be a bit of a longer gap between this video and the next, as I'm currently dealing with a lot of personal mental health issues that have taken a serious toll on me. I love doing videos like this, and all my videos are passion projects for me. I don't get paid for YouTube, so all this effort is done out of my free time, and I just need a bit of time to make myself well. I hope you understand, and Happy New Year. Don't worry, I'll be back. I got some cool stuff planned. Okay. Fuck. Oh my god.